No, I can't argue with it. You know, it's more than the state raise for cost of living, which I think is 3% this year. So, yeah.
Well, welcome back, everybody, for our April 15th meeting and these very bright accommodations. This is the second to the last planned or scheduled Salary Commission meeting. So I'd like to call that to order and ask Diane to take roll.
Jim Morrell, Chair.
Here.
Leland Wells, Vice Chair.
Here.
Mary Jo Cady, Secretary.
Here.
Jan Goodpaster.
Here.
Matt Mallory.
Here.
Devin Ferner.
Present.
Brent Fromm.
Here.
Richard Wilson.
Absent.
Absent.
And Roger Lewis.
Here.
And Braden Sims.
Absent.
He's on.
It is just
Okay,
loading
he's
on.
Okay.
Okay, great. Braden, are you able to hear us okay?
Now you can hear you. I apologize.
Braden, you can hear us now?
There he is.
You can hear us okay, Braden? Okay, great. So we have the minutes in our packet. They're on page 8 of your packet, and from April 8th, they're on page 8. Now I get it. The only thing that I saw is that Mary was here present as staff support from HR. So with that addition, are there any other corrections or questions? Mary Jo.
Down there on the requests for perspectives, about halfway down, I mentioned the discrepancies as far as unincorporated areas for the two counties we added, and I just wanted it included that I mentioned those because I don't believe that we had enough information about those two counties to include them in the comps. The other thing that I
So,
noticed.
Mary Jo, just so I could, so the second sentence of that paragraph references that you emphasize looking at those positions. Is that,
Pardon me?
it references your comments in the second sentence of that paragraph?
Right, it references that, but it doesn't say that, because of what I found and I gave those numbers, I didn't believe that those comps were appropriate for this discussion.
Okay, all right,
I'd like to have that included.
certainly. Okay.
The other thing I was concerned about, and it's not a big deal, is on the second page, the third line under Jim discussed first reviewing the salaries, it says financial blowback. And then about 7 lines down, it says potential bow waves. And I'd like to change both of those words just to backlash, financial backlash and potential backlash.
I don't see why we need to do that, honestly. I mean,
That's all.
So are you married to changing those words, Mary Jo?
Pardon me?
Would you like those words changed,
I
or,
would like those words changed
and Lee
to backlash.
asked not? I seem to recall using the word blowback. I don't know about the bow waves, but without going
The
back.
bow waves, I don't know, but I thought if we changed them both to the same thing, it would make more sense in continuity.
They're not verbatim minutes, remember that.
Yeah.
The action is what counts. So as long as it's an accurate summary of what was said, that's what counts.
I don't really.
Bow waves doesn't make any sense. I would say either blowback or would you say backlash, you said you'd call it?
Or backlash, yeah. Because
It doesn't really
It's no big
change the
deal,
meaning,
it's
so
just-
we'll change both of those,
continuity.
Diane, to backlash. And then the first page, you got that addition that Mary Jo requested. Okay, great. Any other updates to the minutes?
I know I use the word bow wave, but that's just one I use more often than I don't. So
Sorry.
You all right if it changes to backlash, Matt? Is that okay? Okay, cool. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from April 8th with those edits.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
And I second it.
Roger, thank you. All right. Any other discussion?
Oh,
Braden had it.
Yeah, I don't think I have to pack
It
Can't
was
really hear.
emailed to you and it's online,
Yeah, but what day was the email?
probably last
Friday.
Friday.
Friday,
So
Friday.
April
12th.
12th. And I'm sorry, who made that motion to approve?
Mary Jo
Roger?
made the motion, Roger seconded the motion.
Jesse Grant.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
hold on here.
Yeah, the email came out at
There I have it. It
12:30.
was, yeah, when you get these direct emails, it's confusing. It makes you think it's a different email when there's a whole thread.
For the roll call, Richard showed up.
Yes.
Yeah, Diana's got it, yeah.
Hey Braden, can you speak again real quick, please, so I can just do a voice check?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There we
Okay,
go.
Gotcha, thank you.
And Braden, you found the packet okay in your email?
Yeah, I got it. It's, like I said, it gets, when there's thread, when people reply to it, it gets, the, initial
Yep.
email
Yeah.
gets.
Good deal.
Like, yeah.
All right, thank you.
It's lost in the thread, which is
So-
problematic.
Right. So if there's no other edits, we have a motion and a second to approve the April 8th meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that's right, there's a delay there. We'll get used to that eventually. All right. There's, I was gonna do this, sorry, a little rusty at the chair thing sometimes. Before we go on to the review of the salary considerations, I did want to bring up one piece of review that I did and was communicating with Mark Neary about, and it was going back to review the resolution of the Board of County Commissioners. Specifically, there are two things of note. One, the way that the resolution is constructed is, and Mark, please correct me, or Diane if I'm wrong, because both Diana and Mark had meetings with the Deputy Prosecutor, Tim Whitehead, to interpret this legally for us. Our decision that we're making now will set the salary from May 1st through December 31st of 2025. We do have the flexibility, if we choose, to do that in 2 steps. The next action for setting salary for the elected officials would take place prior to May 1 of 2026 and go into effect January 1 of 2027. So just to review that again, the decision we're making now goes into effect May 1st through December 31 of 2026.
You said 2025 first.
Yeah, I did. I'm correcting myself. It's 2026, right?
25 and then the next, and for 2026.
Okay, so from now through 2026, correct?
Yeah, you're setting for the next 2 succeeding years, so you're setting.
Plus this
25,
initial
26.
term.
And
Okay.
because it's initial, you're starting at May 1.
I read what was in my notes, but my notes were wrong. So let me go back over that one more time. So the decision that we're setting now is May 1st through December 31 of 2026. It's 2 years plus this first initial period of time. The next action to change salaries for the elected officials would need to take place prior to May 1 of 2026 and go into effect January 1 of 2027. That's the legal interpretation of the resolution. Is that clear for everybody? Yeah, Roger, are you okay with that? You want me to go over it one more time?
No. It just seems like an exorbitant amount. Should we make it for less, like the carrot in front of the horse? Because what?
All I'm talking about right now is timeline.
All right,
Yep, all I'm talking about right now is
Concur.
timeline.
And Jim, you did say on your first statement that we do have the flexibility to look at steps within that first block of time, which is May 1, 24 to December 31, 26.
Yes, the deputy prosecutor suggested doing it once, but there is flexibility to do it in 2 steps.
And then the second part is that if we're gonna change the salary, we'd have to do it prior to May 1 of 2026, effective January 1, 2027.
Correct.
Was there a specific reason cited for preference on single step versus 2?
Diane?
I think it was more simplicity.
Okay.
It's the way that the resolution was written, that the commissioners passed. It said it would set the salary for 2025 and 2026. And so that period of 2025 is technically May through December of 25.
Okay.
May of 24 through December of 25. And the second December, or January through December 2026.
Okay.
So he was thinking like there was two distinct periods.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more
But
sense.
not 4 steps throughout, or, I mean, that would just make it less.
Way too complicated.
Simple, right, way too complicated. So, we'll get to this again in our salary consideration discussion. The second part of this, which I am not going to entertain discussion on, at least now, unless we have time at the end of tonight's meeting, is that we were trying to stagger terms in the bylaws. We'll need to go back and review that again in order to do the intent of the committee, because the way it is right now, half of this group potentially would not be around to consider that at the beginning of 2026. That's what caused me, and I think Commissioner Mallory's question about how that worked made me the next day think through this and read through the resolution and ask Mark some questions. So that is the update there. The goal that I have for tonight in the next 45 minutes is for us to try and reach decisions about the salaries for all elected officials. That is the goal. For sure, by the time we are finished this evening, and so I might just prep us that could take a little longer than 7:30, but the reason for that madness is so that next week we can come up with implementing resolution and have that all said and done. So I'm not suggesting we're curtailed discussion, but we do have a timeline now. The light is at the end of the tunnel, or there is no light. We'll see how the conversation goes, okay? So we did, Mackenzie, after our meeting last week, had issued the email and the questions to the elected officials. At the back of your packet, the last page, front and back, the very, very last page, it's not numbered of your packet, is a summary of all of those responses. Just so you're aware, people have different views of this. The way the summary was put together is by asking Adobe's AI assistant to digest and summarize the materials. So it's not perfect, but this was the summary it produced for each of the questions based on what was said. It just takes a look at the document. It says, what are the job functions or responsibilities, and how would each position summarize that? And this is for the 7 positions.
Thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, well, thank AI, right? It took literally about
And you earn your pay.
very quick. So when you read through these, I'm just going to summarize real quick, if I could. The assessor's job to distribute property taxes equitably, value real and personal property, maintain assessment records, administer property tax exemptions, and defend protested property values. The auditor's response summarized was as the chief financial officer, overseeing finances, developing budget, recording official documents, and performing duties required by statute. The clerk manages the office, handles various case types, processes payroll, manages accounts payable, etc. I don't have to read all of this for you. The coroner determine the cause and manner of death, conduct death scene investigations, analyze medical records, and so forth. The treasurer is responsible for all financial affairs. The county commissioner's job involves managing a large budget, understanding all county departments. I think that was pretty consistent across all commissioners' responses, dealing with regulations and legislative matters, And the sheriff's responsibility was, I think he quoted a document, the CEO of law enforcement for the county, keeping the peace or something along those lines, managing a jail, overseeing divisions, handling tasks like SWAT, search and rescue, and working closely with other agencies. So that was the job functions and responsibilities for each position. We also asked them how they feel their salaries compare. Generally, everybody that responded, which was all of the electeds, and we appreciate that very much for their time in doing so, felt that their salary in Mason County compares unfavorably with comparable counties. They expressed concern that their salaries are lagging behind those in other counties and may not be competitive enough to attract qualified candidates or adequately reflect the workload and responsibilities of their positions. And some respondents specifically mentioned salary disparities between Mason County and other counties, including a perceived discrepancy in compensation. The third question, whether the respondents were satisfied with their current role. There were mixed feelings about their current role, some expressing satisfaction and sense of fulfillment in serving the community. However, there was a common concern among them that the salary they received may not be sufficient to attract qualified individuals to run for their positions. They emphasized the importance of public service and the dedication required, but also acknowledged the need for competitive salaries to ensure viable candidates are attracted to these positions. And finally, the fourth question was about how many hours, and the respondents consistently mentioned exceeding the standard 40-hour work week. There was a range of hours between 50 to 80 plus. The nature of their responsibilities, such as attending meetings, conducting investigations, responding to emergencies, contributes to the demanding workload. Flexibility and dedication are highly highlighted as essential qualities. So that was the summary. Was there anything not covered in the summary that anybody would call out? Roger?
Just a comment, it sounds suspiciously like that, paper that had the Mason County configuration on the front. It sounds suspiciously like that, but I do concur with it.
So which paper were you referring to?
It's out, I have it out in the truck.
Are you talking about the WCC SEO or whatever it
Yes.
was?
Okay, but you agree with the summary?
Yes.
Yeah. Lee?
So there's one thing that Adobe didn't catch with the coroner, where the coroner is also takes over the sheriff's duties if the sheriff is unavailable and or indisposed to respond to a scene or whatever. The coroner has to act in the sheriff capacity at that point.
And the sheriff included that, or the coroner did?
The coroner did, yes.
In her response?
Yes.
Is that
It's in the RCW.
RCW?
Yeah. It's,
Mary Jo?
In the second to last one where it says, satisfied with current role and their salaries, it said there's a common concern that the salary they receive, except for the sheriff. And the sheriff said his was okay, and he didn't know what other sheriffs were making.
Mhm.
So,
Very valid, then, I remember that, yeah. Anyone else have any takeaways from your read of the information? It was a lot. I appreciated the comments for my job or for any of our roles. Whatever we're doing in life right now, to summarize that in 200 words or less would be challenging. I applaud those that did that, and which were many. But so we have that. Okay. I'm just messing up tonight, sorry. I'm just jumping around, hopefully keeping you on your toes. Okay. The other document that we had is the salary considerations. It's a working draft. And it's on page 2 of your packet for tonight, which was item 4 on the agenda. We just did item 5 on the agenda. It's been one of those days, I guess. We have the last 4 bullets on this page, and remember, this is just kind of running, like capturing thoughts and ideas as we build to our decision. Last week, there was a comment about considering recent history of salary increases, and that the historic raises have capped county commissioner salaries at 1% since at least 2013. That's the history that we have. Which consequently affected everybody else with the exception of 1 year and the sheriff. Elected officials' positions are not necessarily in all cases transferable to jobs outside of county government. Consideration of how increases will be received by voters as well as all residents. Consideration of rep and non-rep staff percentage salary increases as we reach our decision. So those were, I think, the 4 additions to this sort of running list of considerations that we're keeping in mind. Has anybody had any other thoughts about considerations that we should be keeping in mind in general? All right. So, on page 3 of your packets is the salary comparables with the 9 counties that we have utilized. I appreciate, Mary Jo, you bringing up when we reviewed the minutes, your comments last week about Walla Walla County. I would note that out of any of the counties, they're the lowest salary for the elected officials at the county level. That's just my observation as to add to your thoughts. I can go through this again if you'd like me to, or we can cut to where, or move forward to where we left off last week, if that's all right. So I'm going to skip through pages 3. Page 4 was those increases that we estimate based on the July 1 increase for Superior Court judge salaries and the 3% cost of living adjustment that would apply in Jefferson and Walla Walla counties. That's the blue section. And then on page 5, this is where we were last week. In the top half, and we've got page numbers, colors, and line numbers down the left-hand side. So one way or another, we're going to be on the same page, I hope. So what we were discussing last week and looking at for the elected officials, save the county commissioners and the sheriff, was that the median salary does vary a little bit. As an example, on line 41, the coroner is a little bit less median than the assessor, auditor, and clerk, and the treasurer is just about $70 less than that, 101,782. That's on line 41. We were talking about our considerations of doing an increase to that median in 1 step or 2 steps. If we were to do it in 1 step, you can see the 1-step increases on line 43. And if we were to split that 50-50, that's line 46 and 48. And if we were to do it 75-25, because somebody brought up that possibility, I didn't do everything, but that's lines 51 and 53. At the end of our discussion, then the thought came up. I apologize, I can't attribute these to anybody, but you may or may not want to be attributed to. So, is what happens if we average the median of these 5 positions? If we do that, the average median is 103,507. So a 1-step increase would be 16,051. A 2-step increase, if we divided that 50-50, cut that number in half, is 8,026 for May 1 and January 1.
I have one question.
Yeah, Joan.
And this might be for Mary. Is there an extra cost to the county in implementing it in 2 steps as opposed to 1?
I mean, it's additional and double for payroll to do what they do, but it's not uncommon.
But is it, I mean, are we talking about it would be twice as much to do this, or is it just a matter of typing in new salaries?
It's pretty minimal.
Okay. That's
Minimal.
fine. So there's an additional cost, but it's minimal.
Yep.
Jim, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
It's on line 45, 2-step increase. So that initial one, I'm looking at the assessor column, the first one. It would be that step 1, 8,554.29.
Yes.
Okay. And if we did another one that's predicated on the 87,456, or would that be predicated on the...
It's line 43 divided by 2.
Okay.
4
Okay.
times 50%.
Okay.
I took the decimals off going down just to reduce the numbers, so there's sometimes a rounding of a dollar.
Yeah, so math, you get an increase in year one, you base the second year increase percentage-wise off of that new amount.
Oh, I
Does
see what you're
that make
saying.
sense?
Yeah, it does.
So,
All I did was, I did not do that. All I did was, take the 17,109 and divided it by 2.
okay,
So you're correct, Matt, good thinking through spreadsheet. But, it would be a slightly less percentage increase on January 1. Does that make sense to everybody?
so we understand what I'm asking, so if we give, and let's say if we do, if the group decides it wants to do a two-step, so you take, what is that base salary right now, the 87,456, give a percentage increase, starting May, going to December. That is at a, let's use an easy number, 10%, I'm not saying 10%, so that's $8,700. Well, you take that $8,700 plus the 87, that's where their new salary is. Right, now if we gave you another 10%, it would be on top of that new dollar amount, over their total compensation. So that's where, that was my question about the math.
So to more, and thank you, and I was trying to figure out how to roll this into a spreadsheet, but this is a very good point. So just as a sake of example, when we're looking at two-step increases, on line 49, where it says 9.78% increase under assessor, it would be 8.91%. So we would have a 9.78% increase May 1st, and then an 8.91% increase January 1, because the first increase increases the base salary, and so the same dollar amount increase is a less percent of a larger number on January 1. Joanne?
It's a math thing, so ask all our questions.
I understand where you're going with that. What I don't understand still is why we're not doing it in one step. We're only going to the median, we're not going to the high end. These people have taken it on the backs of the elected officials all these years to not get an increase, and now we're gonna say, okay, but you can't, we have to do it in 2 steps, we can't do it in one. I mean, who are we appeasing by doing the 2 steps? Is it because this committee doesn't want the backlash on it? Or is it they're afraid of the voters' backlash? I don't understand. I think that we owe it to them because of the time and the years that they've gone without any money, the money they should have been getting, to give it to them. Let's do it and be done with it.
I don't think we've decided that yet.
Huh?
I don't think we've decided whether we're doing 1 or 2 steps.
No, but we're spending a lot of time talking about 2 steps.
So this is a good conversation, and Mary Jo's bringing up an argument to do this in 1 step versus 2. Last week, I think to answer your question, Mary Jo, you had expressed that Matt, Jan, Brent, Braden, Lee had expressed the 2-step, and that's why I put both on the spreadsheet, was because there seemed to be trends in the conversation to leaning towards the 2-step, but we have not made a decision yet about that. And Devin was still contemplating that last week, so.
I was contemplating that, but I did contemplate that quite a bit over the week. And, you know, I feel like if we determine that these positions, that they are meriting a raise, then the right thing to do would be to give that raise. It doesn't matter election cycles, doesn't matter what people might say about it. They're welcome to review the minutes, they're welcome to watch how we came to these decisions. But I don't feel the right thing to do would be to give 2 steps. If we feel that a position merits a raise, then it merits a raise. If my boss came to me and said, hey, we did a salary review, and we think that you're being paid 10 grand, not, you know, you're short 10 grand, but we're only gonna give you 5 now, and 5 later, I'm gonna be upset with that, and I think everybody here would be. So I'm against 2-step, and I am now in
The 1 step.
1 step.
Okay, thank you, Brent, or Devin, for keeping. thinking about that. Lee?
So, to kind of explain my position on it regarding the two-step. So, outside of being on a committee, you know, I've talked to, and this is in the past, about our elected officials. I've talked to my dad, I've talked to several of my neighbors in multiple counties, whether that be Skagit County, which I lived in Mount Vernon, or whether that be here, whether that be Pierce County, whatever. Every single one of them, it doesn't matter if the elected official is at X pay now and only took a 1% pay increase. Every single voter is more worried about how that's going to affect their taxes tomorrow, okay? And so that's something we need to make clear, is whether it's going to affect their property taxes and all that. The other thing we need to make clear is why we're doing it the way we're doing it, whether that be the one-step or the two-step. When we come to the two-step, it, to me, as well as a lot of other people, it's more palatable for a marked, increase over a 6-month, 8-month, year process, where it's kind of like a bonus at that point, because they did accept these past raises at the 1%. It's kind of a bonus saying, hey, we appreciate your effort and your thought process at this time. We want to make it up to you and bring you even now.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's a continuation. It's not just a one-time bonus.
So the only thing I might offer to what you shared, Lee, is we are not determining how property taxes are utilized.
Yeah.
That's the Board of County Commissioners, right? So all we're doing is determining salary.
I was making the reasoning why.
Sure. Yep. Roger?
Okay, Mary and Mary Jo, we have not seen where the well that all this water is, all this pay is coming from. So are we, if we make it in one step, sucking out all this water, and then our job is over and done with? Or, so what are we doing?
Well,
If
we
make
heard
it-
from Mark that we have a very healthy budget finally.
Okay, that's great, but we
Lots of
haven't seen
reserves.
how deep the well is.
So our consideration, as I understand, is to set salary. The overall budget of the county is outside of, I think, the purview of this group.
Excuse me?
It's somebody's, yeah. Somebody else online, I think. So I would agree with Mary Jo that when we covered that in the first or second week, we had some questions for Mark about the budget, and that whatever we decided, whatever we decide, there's the flexibility to ascertain that. Also, when we were welcomed by Commissioner Netherland and Auditor Dunkel, they alluded to being able to support, I don't remember their words, the decisions that we came out. So Roger, are you feeling like it would be better for 2 steps or 1 step? 2 steps?
2 steps,
Okay.
because I think if we suck all the water out right now, we don't know for sure where anything is going to, in the future, is going to come from.
Sure, okay, very good. Richard, do you have any thoughts on?
I've been on both sides, all back and forth, but initially I think 1 is better. The only reason I listened to arguments last time we were here, and there was some discussion about the anniversaries falling on times when the county was doing their different revamping and things. It made it convenient for the county to do it in 2 steps because of the way the timing fell.
Okay.
What we were discussing, but I'm still of the opinion that a one-time thing is probably going to be the easiest and the best and the simplest, and people will be able to use the money when they need it. We won't have to worry about complications with percentages and
Okay.
dates and when and how, just do it, and get it over with.
So, Devin?
I believe we have a troll on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get, I just removed them all of them again.
But then they came on with another name.
Yeah, different name.
Go ahead, Devin.
I think just maybe, I don't know, call it a counter argument, but maybe a counter argument to the draining of the county funds is we're only talking about, if we're doing a two-step versus one-step, we're only talking about a difference of 6 months between the different pay. So we're not gonna run, the county's not gonna run out of money for 6 months and be like, oh, I don't know what we're gonna do. So, I don't know that draining the water is really, that doing one-step versus two-step is gonna drain the water enough to impact.
Thank you for that. So Matt, Joan, Brent, or Braden, do you have any different thoughts about one step or two steps since last week?
My only thought on the two-step is that it might be more fiscally responsible. It's like starting a new medication. You don't just, take it all at once, you titrate up to it.
Okay.
And so, given, it's a pretty significant pay increase, it might allow the budget and the government more time to adjust to these pay increases, move money around. I don't see any harm in titrating it up. In the long run, we're gonna get there, but it is a pretty significant pay bump, like I said, it might be the more fiscally responsible approach, for now.
Brent?
Yeah, and my original concern was finish fiscally responsible to all the voters and citizens of this county. But after Prosecutor Whitehead's interpretation of the instructions we had been given and considering the timelines that he's imposed on that, the ones that we were working with last week, I have less problem. One way or the other, we're going to be forced into an amount of blowback.
Okay.
Well, and really, I was for the two-step approach.
Backlash, excuse me.
I was for the two-step approach, and I've been thinking on it, and I'm not so sure that I am that strong for it anymore. I could be talked into the one-step approach. The two-step approach seems right from the public's perception. But in looking at the amounts, it's really, if you add up, it's approximately $20,000 across the board, maybe a little bit more here and there per person, except for the sheriff. And if we were to use this, I think he actually goes down.
Yeah.
But that's another story. But, so that's only $120,000 a year for a county this size, and with our budget, I think that it's absorbable.
Yeah.
And that's $2 a year per citizen, essentially.
It sounded to me like, as you were talking about at the beginning when we were introduced to this thing, before they ever formed this resolution to start this commission, they pretty much anticipated a pretty good hit on the budget and had that in place, waiting.
Yeah.
And expecting us to do this very thing at the time. So, I get the impression that the money's there waiting for us to make our decision.
Anybody that's not said anything yet tonight that wanted to? Roger, you have another thought?
No.
That's fine if you do. I just want to make sure to give everybody. We've heard Lee, Brent, Devin, Roger, Matt, everybody share, and Braden. So the deputy prosecutor, his suggestion was one step. My sense is that, everybody, unless there's a new thought, we've kind of heard from everybody, and that we need to make a decision about whether or not we want to move forward, regardless of position, as to one step or two step.
Okay.
Brent?
When we first talked about the interpretation by the deputy prosecutor, I believe that was an interpretation of the laws and statutes as it is. You just said his opinion on it is that.
His suggestion was, yeah.
But it is not a legal opinion.
The deputy prosecutor is an attorney. It's a legal opinion of the interpretation of the resolution the Board of County Commissioners passed. It's okay if we wanted to do it 2 steps. He didn't say that wasn't legal. I think it was just, perceived as cleaner to do it in 1. So, Roger?
I believe, or as I understand it, our job is over and done with when we vote the one step, when we vote for 1 step. After
No.
that, it's all automatic. I mean, we took about the cost of living raises and so on like that. That's all automatic.
No.
I think our job's over and done with.
It is not. If we determine 1 step, then the decision that we subsequently have to make is to what level. We're not talking about dollar or what increases for anybody right now. We're just talking about doing one adjustment May 1 or an adjustment May 1 and January 1 of 2025. So, but we could continue to have this linger, and I'm trying to move us towards either consensus, which we don't have, or would entertain a motion for somebody to make for 1 step or 2 step.
I would just add, this was my thinking last session, and it's still my thinking now, is I think we can all agree from the data we have that in the comparison data that our elected officials are well below the median. I think we can all agree with that. It's how do we go about catching them up? I think that's part of the discussion. I am, having worked in the public sector, the reason I threw out the 2-step process is I think voters, if they look at the rationales trying to catch up our elected officials to what would be the median of a group of other elected officials over a 2-year process. X percentage increase now, another percentage increase in a year and a half from now. If we look at the median numbers, a single increase, 18.5%, 19%, that is, it's a big number to most people. I've never received increase at that rate, even changing jobs for another.
Have you stated a 1% increase for 13 years?
No, but I would have also bargained my position or advocated for myself that my position is falling behind. I need to do some catch up with that, or at least find a benchmark out there that I could find that I come close to. And I know, I think I mentioned it last time, and I don't, the county commissioners have an opportunity to increase that 1% over the years. They decided not to for various reasons. That's their decision. But I think we can all agree that based on the data, we do want to do something to enhance their salary to get them close to a median. It's just, how do we want to do it? And Mary, you mentioned it last time, do you just tear the Band-Aid off? And for me, I'm just a little more cautious than that. And I understand where you're coming from that. I do. Take the hit, take it one time and move on. I also know within the resolution there is that opportunity for a community member to file is it a referendum?
It's a referendum.
Referendum.
To change it.
My thinking on a 2-step process, there may not be as much angst. But again, I don't know what the 1-step would look like that we want to talk about. That's my thinking, just.
One other thing that I'd like to point out that we talked about, I think about 3 meetings ago now, or 2 meetings ago. When we do an increase like this to our elected officials, the represented and non-represented groups that the county also deals with can look at this percentage increase and use that in their bargaining with the county to increase their pay as well, even though they may be commensurate to what other counties are already paying them. They're seeing a 19.5% increase to an elected official and going, well, why can't we get that if they can? Even though they didn't take that 1% for 13 years.
Well, that's it. You can say, well, look back and you've gotten 2.5% or 3% every year when these other people who are elected have only gotten 1%. I mean, you
There
don't
is
have an
reasoning
argument
behind
there.
it. There is
They're
reasoning
already
behind
up
it.
Closer to the median.
Yeah.
now Because they're union.
There's reasoning
negotiated.
behind it, but that's not going to change their marketing position in that regard. They're going to stick to that number.
But it's not in our scope to consider future bargaining positions of the county.
You're right, but that's, you know, another reasoning for the two-step. That's all it is. You know,
Well, quite frankly, I've been in budget negotiations with the state where this kind of a large increase in salary has generated accusations, innuendos of the county, or in our case, the state, bargaining in bad faith because they knew they had this surplus and have known for years and refused to bargain to take care of that disparity in the pay.
So for the purposes of us moving forward, I think I might want to make sure that everybody's thoughts have been heard, that I'm not trying to cut any conversation short, but also keeping this moving forward. This is not a decision to set the salary, it's a decision about how we move forward with the rest of the conversations about one step or two step. I would entertain a motion from somebody to move forward with a one-step approach or a two-step approach.
I move that we move forward with a one-step approach.
I second Mary's motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we focus moving forward on a one-step approach to changing the salaries May 1. Any other questions or conversations, thoughts that people would like to share? Hearing none, I would call for the question, all in favor of a one-step approach?
I wonder if we should take a roll call.
Yeah, I was just gonna see, and because there's some opposition. Diane, could you please call roll for the vote, please, either in support, aye, for support of a one-step, or no, which would be supporting a two-step.
So in favor of a one-step approach effective May 1, 2024.
What's that? I'm sorry.
He's wanting to call roll call on who's voting in favor of a one-step change to the salary effective May 1, 2024.
with I being yes and nay being no.
And so no would be a two-step approach, right? It would be the opposite of that. Yeah, so usually we'd go up the roll call until the chair or something, I would imagine, right?
I've never done a roll call on the vote.
Yes, we just go around the table.
Yeah,
So
around
we
the
can
table.
So just go
actually
around the table and just,
start with, I'll keep a record here for you guys if you
okay.
want.
So Richard is an aye.
Yes.
Mary Jo is an
Aye.
aye. Jan is a nay. Jim?
Lee, I'd break the tie if there's a tie.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Okay, just let me catch up here. Devin is an A. Roger?
Nay.
Nay. Matt?
Nay.
Brandon.
Brandon?
Oh, Brandon.
Braden.
Go Braden, nay.
So motion failed.
And the chair votes no.
So motion failed.
Motion failed.
Okay. So that's the democratic process for having conversation, a very good debate and conversation. That's very, very healthy, I think, for us and for everybody that's watching our deliberations. So
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Well, no,
It's
actually,
fine. It is absolutely
Maybe.
fine.
if you don't keep your mouth shut, we wouldn't have this healthy conversation,
Exactly.
so.
So not to throw a wrench into
Now
this,
that
but
we
should we
take
now
it-
vote on 50/50 versus
Can I see how deep the
75/25?
well
Or
is?
Well,
should
do
we
we
just?
have, do we have to have a motion saying we're going to have the two-step?
He wants to-
Well, that was part.
That was, no, that was just the decision there.
Yeah.
25.
Assume that makes
It was a
sense.
2-in-1.
Unless anybody else has another alternative,
Okay.
other than 1 or 2 steps, but I haven't heard that.
And then are we looking at median or average median?
Yeah, that's exactly my.
Yeah, that's the next conversation is
Thank you.
about
Thank you very
median,
much.
average median, and who's included in what. So, all right, so back to the spreadsheet. We were on page 5. And I'm gonna go through this page and the next 2 pages for us.
Jim, before we start this, it's almost 6:30. Do you think we should take a look?
I'd like to move forward if we could, just
Okay.
to do this review. Mary needs to leave at 6:30, so I'm
okay.
trying to keep her here and get through,
Okay.
just in case we have a question, so.
I will be on the Zoom in my car though, just,
You're not supposed to do that.
I'm just listening.
So I want to just walk through, so what we're looking at now for consideration is, on page 5, we have an average median, the number on line 41 is the median for each individual position, so that's why you see the coroner and the treasurer being a little bit different. The average median across all 5 positions is on line 56, so that's the 103,507. And that's why it's the same across all 6 positions. If you fast forward to page 6 and the orange bar at the top, that page is only looking at the county commissioners. The median and the average of the median is the same because there's only one number, right? It is math, but that one's hopefully easier.
So we didn't do one.
So there,
Sure.
we aren't talking about sheriff just yet. I'll explain why once I get to the next page. If we fast forward to page 7, you'll see the median at the top for all 6 positions. And then that's on line 109, and on line 124 is the average median for all 6 positions. I anticipated that this could be a question that came up because currently the commissioner's salaries and all of the other 5 electeds is the same, correct?
Yes.
Right, okay, I'm double checking myself. So you have those 3. I did not include the sheriff to Jan's question, which is on page, it should be on page 8. Which I-
There's no page 8.
Page 8 is the minutes from last meeting.
So,
There is no page 9.
Yeah, there's no page, no, page 9 is on the backside of the
Okay.
minutes. So, we're
okay,
just missing it.
so,
I don't have a page.
We're just missing the sheriff.
yeah, so, we are missing the sheriff, but we'll try and work that out during the break. But the reason I did not include that is because the significant disparity between the other 6 and the sheriff's salary. If we included that in the median or then averaged the median of that, we would see an increase to a much higher level. Does anybody disagree with that, or is anybody interested in knowing what the median or average median is for all 7, including the sheriff?
Well, the sheriff is so much above the median already that I think it just needs to be considered
Separate?
separately.
Okay, that's kind of what I was anticipating by our discussions, but I'm in the process in this role not to assume. I want to make sure that everybody has been heard, right? So when we go back and look at what we do have here on pages 5, 6, and 7, I just want to kind of get a sense of the group. Do you want to look and handle, is there any thoughts on handling the 5 positions without the county commissioner or including the county commissioner and look at all 6 at the same time? That'd be the difference between pages 5 and pages 7. Any,
I was trying to look back real fast and see if I could figure out why they decided to move them all to the same salary at one point in time, but I'm not finding that.
Yeah, I don't think that was given to us in the past
Okay.
minutes from the commission
did you
meetings.
find it?
Say that one more time, what was the question?
The reasoning why everybody's equalized?
Across, for our county?
Yes.
Because it was just one of the resolution decisions that they made was to finally get everyone at the same level.
And did you find, Jen's got the notes.
Oh,
Well,
sure.
I'm trying to read it right now.
Yeah, we're trying to.
But that was the intent of the resolution, or was to move everybody to
There
the
were
same.
a myriad of reasons why.
Okay.
I'm sure there was, I'm sure there was some data behind whatever the previous
No,
administration.
this doesn't address it.
Yeah. Okay.
I am.
So when that decision was made, as I recall from reading through the minutes, the staff person at the time was putting the information together, and the minutes, as I recall, did not really specify a rationale as to why.
For my time, for Mark's time.
Okay.
I don't remember.
They
So,
have to plead
Joe,
the fifth.
That's
Joe?
right. There's probably lots of.
So it looks like the question right now is, do we go with the median or do we go with the average median?
Two questions. Do we go with the median, the average median? On either of those, do you want to include the county commissioners or not?
Right.
Do you want to handle county commissioners separately?
No.
Roger says together, Matt says together.
Yeah, I'd rather take them as the current group
Yes.
together.
Yes.
We know that the sheriff position is a separate
Separate.
discussion.
Okay.
The only
Richard?
We're using comps to come to these figures, so
Okay.
you might as well include them with the comps, just like everyone else. In my
Yeah.
opinion, I think.
Well, there's a comment in April 8th, 2019, where Commissioner Shetty said he would like to tie electeds to the salary of commission and would like to tie the sheriff's salary to 5% above. And that was just, that's the only thing there.
That's all that I saw as well.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a rationale, at least in the minutes.
So does anybody want to handle the county commissioners
Separate.
on their own scale? All right. No?
I guess it
Go ahead, Mark.
depends on if they're gonna be average, going in with the average median, or if they're gonna be with the median.
So that is the question, right? So when we're calculating the median or the average median, when you look at line 43 and line 111, the median, sorry, wrong lines. Let's go with this. Line
Page 7.
lines, we're going with 2 steps.
109.
So if you look at the, hold on a second. $41 for the assessor. Sorry. Yeah. So if you look at line 41 for the assessor, which is the median of the comparable counties' assessor salaries, it's 104,565. And if you look at the average median on line 56, it's 103,507. So keep those numbers in mind, 104,565 and 103,507. And then if you drop down to page 7, the 104,565 stays the same. And the 103,507 goes to 104,501 on line 124. So when we bring in the county commissioners, if we're working with the average median, it's about $1,000 more for all of the elected officials, including the county commissioners. Does that make sense?
Yes.
On page 7, if you go to the county commissioners and you look at the median, it's 109,470.
Correct.
If you go down to the average median, then it goes down to 104,501.
Correct. So,
But it's almost $9,000.
so we're looking at those two numbers, and but
But helps everybody out a little bit.
The 109 is just for the county commissioners.
just for the county commissioners.
So we would,
That's not bad.
we could either take the 5 elected people and price them as a group together using the average median, right, but without the commissioners.
Correct.
And deal with the commissioners separately, or we can take them all across the board, which is what apparently in 2019 commissioners themselves decided to do. So I guess the question in my mind is, do the commissioners have a $5,000 in deserve or should be repaid, a $5,000 increase over the,
Over the
the
others.
other 5? Or, yeah, I mean, I like the idea of keeping the other elected officials the same myself, so that I like. I don't know, the commissioners, in my mind, have a little bit harder job in some ways, because they have to handle everything, but I'm not tied to that idea.
I do have one question really quick. Mary Jo, I know you as a past county commissioner, do the county commissioners have any requirements for licensure or anything?
For what?
Licensure or anything like that?
No.
Okay. All right. The reason why I ask is there are positions like the coroner that do require them to have continuing education. Would you like to read their?
Continuing education, yeah.
Yeah.
Continuing
They
education.
also have to, where is it?
That's okay, we all read it.
Okay. Well anyways, they have to maintain a certification, which is licensure, from the board, the national board.
Yeah, the commissioners don't have to do that.
Okay, that's why I asked, was to see, because that pay disparity there also goes to cover that if the county doesn't cover it, which I don't know. So, that's another thing.
Well, none of the other elected officials have to have that either.
Okay, as long as, okay, that second question, good, thank you.
Did you have something to add, Mark?
There are some requirements, so if you're a prosecuting attorney, you have to be an attorney.
Yeah,
If you're a judge, you have to be.
yeah, so I'm assuming that like the auditor or the treasurer would have to have like an MBA or not an MBA?
No.
There's no requirements for those.
Okay.
So, it sounds like we're gravitating more towards page 7, and including all 6 positions. Is that fair? And then the second question, which Mary Jo raised, is do we use the average or do we use the median? And if we use the median, what we would have different salaries for different positions. If we use the average, they're all the same.
I personally be more in favor of that because it gives some wage parity to, they all started out at the same thing, but the difference between the people that are comparison groups, particularly for the coroner and the treasurer, is quite a bit larger than rest. If, do we value our treasurer and coroner enough to pay them as much as everybody else? I believe we all do. And that was kind of their original attempt, was to bring that parity to everybody and value them equally. And, however we decide about the coroners.
Devin, or these concurring, Devin, I saw you shaking your head.
Yeah, I agree with that, I think. Bringing them, you were saying, bring them all to the same.
So-
Yeah. I'm-
You guys are talking about using line 124.
At
Yes.
least
Yes.
for the other positions, I haven't come to a decision on whether to do commissioners separate and the other ones, but I do agree that the other ones should be in line with each other.
And that actually is on, back on page
Yeah.
5, which doesn't, it's $1,000 less.
It's a difference, it is a difference, yeah.
So just to be clear, if we're back on page 6, the median for the county commissioners, if they're held separate, is the same on line 75 as it is on line 109. Right? But then on page 5, the average median for the other positions is 103, which is 103,507, which is $1,000 less than line 124. Yeah.
I would just suggest looking at page 7, 120, line 124, as maybe the talking point, that those people that wanted to have a single phasing this dollar amount gets them there in 2 steps, and it's at a higher amount, which I think everybody was wanting. So that's just my thinking right now. But I think we're also kind of contemplating this is across the board for all the elected officials who are trying to.
Other than the sheriff.
Other than the sheriff, that's
Yeah.
the sheriff's position,
Mhm.
that's a separate discussion.
Jan, Richard, Roger, any thoughts?
I think if we're gonna include the commissioner in the mix, that if you use the median line, it makes the difference too great between them and the rest of the positions. I think if you use the average, that kind of softens everything out a little bit and makes it a little more even across the board. So there's not such a drastic difference between the commissioner's increase in salary and what the rest of the group would get.
Jan?
Well, I'm at the point where I'd like to move that we adopt the average median on line 124 for the all positions short of the sheriff's position.
But,
So
yeah,
is that-
There's that second
Mark,
one.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that's
So,
a motion.
did Brendan disconnect?
No,
so there's
I said
a,
but I'd like to move that.
okay, so there's a motion offered by Jan to adopt the salaries that this is not setting the salary,
What would be?
Sure it is.
so what we have not, so there's a motion and a second by Roger, right? So that's the motion that's on the
Would you
table.
like me to withdraw?
Well, let me just share my thought, is that what we have not decided yet is of how to handle the 2-step. So there was a couple of different ideas floated, 50-50 or 75-25, and we have not discussed that yet. Everybody might be of the same mind, but we are on the same page because of the vote earlier to do this in 2 steps. So May 1, January 1. So I need to understand if
I see this as
The-
2 separate motions.
this.
First is to adopt the salary,
And then we
and the
can
second
decide the
motion
step.
would
And
be
the
how
re-
to implement it.
Doesn't really matter which.
The reason that it makes a difference is because in order to adopt a salary, we need to have 7 affirmative votes. If it's, that's where I'm
Okay,
hung up on. So, so go ahead.
I would like to amend my motion to adopt line 124 as the salary for the 6 elected positions using the 2-step 50-50.
And Roger, you seconded, are you comfortable with that? Okay, thank you.
There we go.
So to clarify, this is a decision to set a salary, to set the salary for the elected officials with the exception of the sheriff. Per the resolution passed by the Board of County Commissioners, this would take a vote of 7 people affirmatively supporting it. Just wanted to clarify that up front. are there thoughts or questions regarding the motion to adopt the average median line
Be li-
124 and do it in a 50-50 two-step?
Using
You said
lines
better than I
129
did.
and 131.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there other thoughts or questions related to that? Anybody? Braden, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. Oh, I'm not even on video.
That was weird.
That's why I asked if you disconnected.
Yeah, no, I was I'm the troll. No. No, I don't necessarily have any, thoughts. I think you guys have pretty much covered it. So.
Okay. Brent?
My only thought's a technicality, if we do implement this, that the percentages, we do it based on the updated percentages, because per
Yeah.
that point, per his
Using the
point.
percentages
I would-
times 130 and 132.
Vote.
So,
That's my only.
yes,
thought on
and did you call for the vote?
Call for the vote.
So, that motion's not debatable, so, gosh, this
You
is
vote.
testing me. What's that?
You vote, he called for the
So,
vote.
we call for the vote, so we vote.
So I should think, since you have to make sure we have 7, I think we should do the roll call.
Start with Richard,
Richard?
Aye.
Mary Jo,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Aye.
Brenton,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Braden,
Oh,
Aye.
Braden.
Chair votes aye.
and
Chair
Jim.
votes aye. Aye.
So unanimous.
Unanimous, we've passed that with a vote of 10, and we get to celebrate with a break. So, we will take a break. Can we come back at 10 till, so that's in about 7.5 minutes? Is that okay? All right, thank you, everyone. Diane?